September 16, 1538. The ancient fortress of Suceava stands on a rocky hill in northern Moldavia, its stone walls blackened by cannon smoke. Outside, stretching across the autumn landscape like a living ocean of steel and flesh, stands an army of 240,000 men. The largest military force Sultan Suleiman the Magnificent has ever assembled. Crimean Tatars circle on horseback, their bows slung across their backs, their eyes scanning for weakness. Janissaries in tall white caps stand in perfect formation, their muskets gleaming in the September sun. Massive iron cannons are being dragged forward through the mud by teams of oxen, their bronze mouths wide enough to swallow a man's torso. Inside those walls, a single man watches from the battlements, Prince Petru Rareș of Moldavia, the illegitimate son of the greatest warrior Moldavia ever knew. He has maybe 5,000 defenders left. His boyars have betrayed him. His capital city is already burning. The Sultan himself has come to crush him. Most men would surrender. Most men would beg for mercy. Petru does not beg. How does a fish merchant's son become the most defiant prince in Eastern Europe? How does a man fight 7 different enemies at the same time and refuse to stop even as death closes in? This is the story of impossible defiance. Of a man who returned from exile 4 separate times, who chose death over submission, who proved that sometimes courage and madness are the same thing. Before diving into this forgotten story of absolute refusal to surrender, if you enjoy learning about the hidden truths of history, consider hitting that like button and subscribing for more content like this. And please comment below to let me know where you're listening from. I find it incredible that we're exploring these ancient stories together from different parts of the world, connected across time and space by our shared curiosity about the past. The year is 1504. Stephen the Great, the legendary voivode of Moldavia, lies dying in his palace at Suceava. He is 65 years old. He has ruled for 47 years. He has fought 36 battles against the Ottoman Empire and won 34 of them. The Pope himself called him the athlete of Christ. His death marks the end of an era, the golden age of Moldavian independence. His grandson Stefanida takes the throne, but Stefanida is weak, sickly, he knows it, the boyars know it, everyone knows it. On his deathbed in 1527, Stefanida does something extraordinary. He recommends that the boyars elect his uncle, his illegitimate uncle, a man who has never held political power. A man whose mother was Maria Rareș, supposedly the wife of a wealthy fish merchant nicknamed Rareș, meaning rare-haired, which is a polite way of saying bald. His name is Petru, the bastard son, the fish merchant. And on January 20th, 1527, the boyars elect him Prince of Moldavia. Petru is approximately 44 years old. He has spent his youth selling fish along the Danube, watching the boats come and go, listening to merchants talk about wars and empires, but blood will tell. He is Stephen the Great's son. And he has inherited his father's ambition, his daring, his piety, his artistic taste, and most dangerously, his absolute refusal to bow to any empire. There is just one problem. Moldavia in 1527 is not the Moldavia of Stephen the Great. It is trapped. Squeezed between the jaws of 4 predators like a lamb surrounded by wolves, and the wolves are hungry. To the south, the Ottoman Empire, the most powerful military force on earth. Sultan Suleiman the Magnificent sits on the throne in Constantinople, ruling an empire that stretches from Budapest to Baghdad, from the Crimean steppes to the deserts of Yemen. His Janissary Corps is the finest infantry in the world. His cavalry can mobilize 100,000 horsemen in weeks. His cannons have shattered the walls of Belgrade, Rhodes, and soon Vienna. Moldavia pays tribute to him, 40,000 gold pieces every year, plus the sons of nobles as hostages to ensure loyalty, plus cavalry troops whenever the Sultan demands them for his campaigns. Moldavia is a vassal state, a puppet. A client kingdom that exists only because the Sultan allows it. To the west, the Kingdom of Hungary has collapsed into civil war. 2 men claim the throne. Ferdinand Habsburg, Archduke of Austria, backed by his brother Charles V, the Holy Roman Emperor who rules Spain, Germany, and the Netherlands. And John Zapolia, a Hungarian noble backed by the Ottomans. Transylvania, the mountain fortress region that guards the border with Moldavia, has become a battlefield. Both sides want Moldavian support. Both sides promise land, gold, and fortresses in exchange for military help. It is a trap. Supporting either side means making a mortal enemy of the other. To the north, the Kingdom of Poland watches with hungry eyes. The region of Pocadia, rich farmland along the Dniester River, dotted with prosperous towns, was conquered by Stephen the Great in 1490. The Poles want it back. They have not forgotten, they have not forgiven. King Sigismund I is waiting for the right moment to strike. To the east, the Crimean Khanate. Tatar horsemen raid across the steppes, burning villages, taking slaves to sell in the markets of Constantinople and Crimea. They answer to the Sultan in Constantinople, but they have their own agenda, their own hunger for plunder, their own reasons to hate Moldavia. This is the chessboard Petru Rareș inherits, a death trap. Most rulers would play it safe, pay tribute to everyone, make alliances with the strongest. Keep your head down, survive. Petru Rareș does the opposite. He looks at the board and decides to flip the table. The date is 1529. The crisis in Hungary is reaching its peak. Sultan Suleiman is marching west to lay siege to Vienna. Ferdinand Habsburg and John Zapolia are tearing Hungary apart. Petru makes his choice. He allies with Zapolia. In exchange, Zapolia promises him the citadel of Bistrita in Transylvania. Petru enters Transylvania with a Moldavian army. Ferdinand's forces, led by the Hungarian noble Turk Balint, march to stop him. June 22, 1529, the fortress of Feldora. The armies meet. The battle is brutal. Cavalry charges. Infantry squares collapsing under pressure. The clash of steel and the screams of dying men echoing across the Transylvanian hills. But Petru is Stephen the Great's son. His cavalry charges like rolling thunder. Ferdinand's army breaks. The retreat becomes a rout. The Habsburgs lose 50 large field guns. Petru captures every single one. He has crushed the forces of the Holy Roman Emperor in open battle. His first war, his first victory. Zapolia rewards him, the fortress of Ungurasel. The citadel of Cetadia de Balta, which his father once ruled. The bishopric of Vad, but not Bistrita. The city is too strong, its walls too thick, its garrison too loyal to the Saxons who control it. Petru lays siege in October 1529. For weeks, his forces batter the walls. But the city does not fall, and the great city of Brasov, the jewel of Transylvania, the key to controlling the entire region, remains beyond his grasp. He is bleeding men and gold for territory he cannot hold. This is the moment where most princes would consolidate, accept their gains. Build alliances. Petru looks north instead. Poland, Pocadia, his father's conquest. He wants it back. In 1530, Petru invades Pocadia. His forces sweep across the region like wildfire. The Poles are unprepared, but King Sigismund I is no fool. He sends a letter, not to Petru, to Sultan Suleiman. The message is clear. Moldavia is your vassal. Control your dog, or we will cross into Moldavia itself, and that means war with you. Suleiman replies with carefully chosen words. You may fight in Pocadia, but do not set foot on Moldavian soil. That would be an act of war against the Ottoman Empire. It is a restriction that cripples the Poles. Moldavian cavalry can strike across Pocadia and retreat into Moldavia. Polish forces cannot pursue them across the border. It is guerrilla warfare with a safe haven. But King Sigismund has a weapon. His name is Jan Tarnowski, Crown Hetman of Poland, one of the finest military minds in Europe, a master of logistics, tactics, and the art of defensive warfare. He is given 4,800 cavalry, 1,200 infantry, 12 cannons, and a Tabor wagon train. He picks the town of Obertyn, north of the Dniester River, as his base of operations, and he waits. Between June 3rd and July 18th, 1531, skirmishes explode across Pocadia like brush fires. Petru sends 6,000 cavalry to besiege the Polish garrison at Gwoźdzyk, a small town a few kilometers south of Obertyn. Tarnowski moves his main army from Obertyn to Gwoźdzyk with shocking speed. His forces hit the Moldavians like a hammer. The siege breaks. The Moldavians retreat in chaos. But Petru is not finished. He is Stephen the Great's son. He does not retreat when he loses a skirmish. He advances. Between July 18th and July 21st, Petru marches into Pocadia with 18,000 cavalry, 50 cannons, and infantry forces. He outnumbers Tarnowski 3-1. He has more guns. He has momentum. Tarnowski leaves some infantry to hold Gwoźdzyk and makes a slow, deliberate retreat to a defensive position north of Obertyn. He is not running. He is choosing his ground, forest on his flanks, open ground to his front. And he arranges his forces in a wagon fort, a defensive ring of wagons chained together, infantry hidden inside, cannons placed at 3 corners of the square. His cavalry waits in the center, out of sight, ready to strike. August 22nd, 1531. Dawn breaks over Obertyn. The morning is cool. Mist rises from the Dniester. Petru's army arrives like a storm cloud. 18,000 horsemen, banners snapping in the wind. The ground trembles with hoofbeats. Petru looks at the Polish wagon fort. He sees 6,000 men. He has 3 times that number. He orders the attack. Moldavian light cavalry charges forward. They are fast, agile, but Polish infantry fire from the wagons. Crossbow bolts and arquebus balls tear into the charging horsemen. The cavalry breaks. Moldavian cannons open fire. The bombardment is loud, dramatic, but poorly aimed. The cannonballs slam into the dirt or sail over the wagon fort harmlessly. Polish artillery, far better trained and equipped, tears into the Moldavian gun lines with terrifying precision. One of Petru's cannons explodes in a shower of bronze shrapnel, killing its crew. Then another. The Moldavian artillery is being systematically destroyed. Tarnowski gives the signal. Polish cavalry bursts from the wagon fort. They hit the Moldavian left flank like a battering ram. The line buckles. Petru reinforces it with reserves. The battle stabilizes, but now Tarnowski launches his remaining cavalry at the Moldavian right. The line collapses. Panic spreads. The entire Moldavian army begins to shatter. The retreat becomes a massacre. Moldavian horsemen flee toward the Dniester River. Some drown trying to cross. Others are cut down by pursuing Polish cavalry. 7,000 Moldavian cavalry dead, 1,000 taken prisoner. All 50 cannons captured. Polish losses, 256 men. It is one of the most one-sided victories in Polish military history. Petru escapes with the survivors. He has lost Pocadia. He has lost his army. He has lost his reputation. Sultan Suleiman hears the news in Constantinople. He is furious. His vassal has disturbed the port's best friend, the King of Poland. But the Sultan is occupied with a war in Persia. He cannot punish Petru. Not yet. Petru knows he has time. He shifts his attention back to Transylvania. The year is 1534. Transylvania is drowning in chaos. An Italian adventurer named Lodovico Gritti, illegitimate son of the Doge of Venice, friend of Sultan Suleiman, merchant, diplomat, and professional opportunist, has been sent by the Sultan to restore order in Hungary. He has been appointed governor. He has money, influence, Ottoman backing, and a talent for making enemies. The Hungarian nobles hate him. The Transylvanian voivode István Magyloth and his allies have had enough. They trap Gritti in the fortress of Medias. Gritti is surrounded, desperate. He sends messages to Constantinople. The Sultan sends orders to Petru Rareș. Free Gritti, you are my vassal. Do this or face my wrath. Petru sends his trusted vassal, a man named Huru, to rescue Gritti. But Huru does not follow orders. Whether he acts on Petru's secret instructions or his own initiative, history does not record. What is certain is this: Huru lures Gritti out of the fortress of Medias and delivers him directly into the hands of István Magyloth and the Hungarian nobles who want him dead. On September 29, 1534, Lodovico Gritti is murdered, butchered. His body is buried in Medias despite the protests of the local citizens. Petru then has Gritti's sons, who had fled to Moldavia for safety, hunted down and killed as well. He has defied the Sultan's direct command. He has allowed the Sultan's personal representative, a man Suleiman trusted, to be slaughtered like an animal. Suleiman is occupied in Persia, fighting the Safavid Empire. He cannot retaliate immediately, but he remembers, and in Constantinople the scribes are writing, recording. Petru Rareș, the voivode of Moldavia, is a problem that must be solved. By 1538, the Sultan's patience is gone. Reports reach Constantinople. Petru has been plotting with Ferdinand Habsburg, secret letters exchanged, plans for an anti-Ottoman alliance. The dream of a Christian coalition to push the Turks out of Europe. The Poles have sent formal complaints to the Sultan. The boyars inside Moldavia, terrified of Ottoman retaliation, have turned on their prince. Some are already negotiating with Constantinople, offering to overthrow Petru in exchange for the Sultan's favor, and Suleiman has returned from Persia victorious. He is at the height of his power. The conquest of Baghdad is complete. His armies are rested. His treasury is full, and he has decided that Petru Rareș must go. On July 9, 1538, Sultan Suleiman the Magnificent leaves Constantinople. He marches with an army of 240,000 men. It is the largest force he has ever assembled for a single campaign. The Rumelian cavalry, the Anatolian cavalry, the Janissary infantry corps, Akinsite irregular cavalry, Sipahi feudal cavalry. Artillery trains with hundreds of cannons, engineers to build bridges, sappers to dig trenches, supply wagons stretching for miles. Crimean Khan Sahib Jure joins him with thousands of Tatar horsemen, their horses small and fast, their bows deadly at 200 paces. The Sultan announces the campaign late, very late. He does not want Petru to have time to prepare. A great bridge is built over the Danube River. The army crosses. They march north toward Moldavia like the wrath of God made manifest. Petru knows what is coming. His spies bring reports, an army beyond counting. The Sultan himself leading it. His capital, Ayasi, is already burning. Petru orders it, scorched earth, leave nothing for the Ottomans. The boyars abandon him. Some flee to Poland. Some offer their allegiance to the Sultan's chosen replacement, Stefan Lacusta. Petru gathers what forces he can. He has perhaps 30,000 Moldavian troops. John Zappalia sends 40,000 Hungarian cavalry to help, combined 70,000 men, against 240,000. Petru does not meet the Sultan in open battle. He is not a fool. He is outnumbered more than 3-1. Open battle would be suicide. Instead, he uses the mountains, the forests, the narrow passes where cavalry cannot maneuver, hit-and-run attacks, guerrilla warfare. Moldavian horsemen strike Ottoman supply lines and disappear into the rocky hills. They poison wells, they burn bridges, they harass the flanks of the Ottoman column, but it is not enough. The Ottoman tide is unstoppable. The Sultan's army crosses the Prut River, another bridge built by Ottoman engineers. The Crimean Khan's forces link up with the main army. The combined force marches toward Suceava, the ancient capital, the fortress that Stephen the Great held for 47 years. The symbol of Moldavian independence. September 16, 1538, the Ottomans reach Suceava. The fortress stands on its hill, defiant. Inside, the garrison watches the horizon fill with enemies, tents stretching to the edge of sight, campfires like stars on the earth. The Sultan sends an ambassador, Sinan Savaş. The message is simple: surrender, come to Constantinople, you will be shown mercy, perhaps you will keep your life, perhaps even a pension, but you must submit. Petru refuses. 9 days pass. The Ottomans surround the fortress completely. No escape, no resupply. The Sultan's engineers drag massive iron cannons forward. They begin casting additional guns in front of the walls, using portable forges. The bombardment begins. The sound is apocalyptic. Stone and fire and the screams of men crushed by falling masonry. The walls of Suceava begin to crack. The garrison realizes they cannot hold. These are not the forces of some minor bey. This is the full weight of the Ottoman Empire, the most powerful military machine on earth. On the same day the siege begins, September 16th, the defenders surrender. The keys to Suceava are handed to the Sultan. The treasures hidden inside the fortress fall into Ottoman hands. Gold, silver, weapons, food stores, everything. The Sultan appoints a new voivode, Stefan Lacusta, a Moldavian boyar who has pledged loyalty to Constantinople. The lords and nobles of Moldavia come to Suleiman's imperial tent. They kneel, they submit. Moldavia is firmly under Ottoman control. The southern region of Bessarabia is annexed directly into the empire. The northern Black Sea coast becomes Ottoman territory. The fortress of Tighina is garrisoned with Turkish troops. Moldavia is smaller, weaker, broken, but Petru Rareș is not in the fortress. He fled before the siege began. He escaped into the wilderness of Transylvania. This is where the legend begins. For 2 weeks, Petru wanders through the impassable forests, thorn bushes that tear his clothes, ancient trees so thick that sunlight barely penetrates, no food, no water. Hunted by Ottoman patrols and Tatar raiders, broken, desperate, overcome by hunger, thirst, shock, and despair, he stumbles through the undergrowth, half-dead, delirious. He is seen by a group of fishermen. They are working the rivers of Transylvania, nets in hand, when they see a man in torn noble's clothing staggering through the trees. They recognize him. He was once one of them. Before he was a prince, Petru Rareș was a fisherman. They shelter him. They give him food and water. They hide him from the Ottoman search parties. When he has recovered enough to move, they dress him in fishermen's clothes, rough wool and leather, the smell of fish and river water, and show him a secret path through the forest, a smuggler's route. A way to reach his fortress of Sisu without being seen. Petru survives, but he has lost everything: his throne, his capital, his army, his reputation. Most men would disappear into history, accept defeat, live out their days in exile, a footnote in someone else's story. For over 2 years, Petru lives in the shadows. The Ottomans control Moldavia. Stefan Lacusta sits on the throne in Suceava, a puppet who dances when the Sultan pulls the strings. The boyars who supported Petru are dead or in exile. Petru is alone, forgotten. But he does not give up, he negotiates. He sends emissaries to Constantinople. He bribes officials in the Sultan's court. He promises loyalty. He promises tribute. He promises to never again disturb the peace with Poland. He swears oaths. He grovels. And slowly, impossibly, the Sultan's anger cools. Suleiman is a pragmatic man. He needs strong rulers in his vassal states. Moldavia under Lacusta is weak, divided. Perhaps Petru, humbled and chastened, will be more useful. Perhaps the fisherman's son has learned his lesson. On February 19, 1541, Petru Rareș returns to Moldavia. He crosses the border with an army of loyalists. He captures Alexandru Cornea, the voivode who had replaced Lacusta. He captures Cornea's loyal boyars, the men who betrayed him, the men who sided with the Ottomans, and he kills them all, publicly, brutally. A message to anyone who might think of betraying him again. Petru is back on the throne, against all odds, against every rational expectation. The fisherman's son has returned, but he is not the same man. The Sultan does not trust him to wage wars. His son-in-law, Vlad VII Vintila of Wallachia, has been killed in political intrigue. His special connection to the south is severed. The Bujak region on the Black Sea coast, seized by Suleiman in 1538, is lost forever. The fortresses of Sisu and Cetadia de Balta are returned to him, but their walls have been razed by George Martinuzzi, the powerful cardinal and real ruler of Transylvania. Petru holds them as empty symbols, ruins, but Petru cannot stop moving, cannot stop scheming. In 1541, on the Sultan's orders, he captures Transylvanian voivode Istvan Majlath, the man who killed Ludovico Gritti, at Fagaras and sends him in chains to Constantinople. Revenge served cold. In 1542, Petru tries once more to take Bistrita, the city that has eluded him for over a decade. He besieges it. He batters the walls, the city does not fall, and then Petru does something that seems like pure madness. He joins a planned crusade against the Ottoman Empire. Joachim II of Brandenburg, elector of the Holy Roman Empire, is organizing Christian princes for a grand alliance. A coalition to break Ottoman power in Eastern Europe once and for all. Petru lends him 200,000 florins, a staggering fortune, enough to hire armies, enough to change the balance of power. The crusade is supposed to march in 1542. It is supposed to liberate Hungary. It is supposed to push the Ottomans back across the Danube, but when the Ottomans besiege Buda in 1542, the crusade collapses. The Christian princes scatter. No one marches. No one fights. Petru's 200,000 florins are gone, wasted. He is still a Turkish vassal. Still paying tribute of 40,000 gold pieces every year. Still trapped. The final years of Petru's life are marked by defiance in a different form. He cannot wage wars, so he wages spiritual war. With his wife Jelena, a Serbian princess from the Brankovic dynasty, he builds churches. Probota Monastery, his masterpiece, completed with soaring arches and intricate stonework. Moldavita Monastery, with its exterior frescoes showing the siege of Constantinople, a painted prayer for Christian victory over the Turks, every brushstroke an act of resistance. He repairs churches in Baia, Batasani, Harlau, Targu Frumos, Roman. Each one is an act of faith. Each one is a defiant gesture. You control my armies, but you do not control my soul. You dictate my foreign policy, but you cannot dictate where I pray. If you're enjoying Petru's impossible story of defiance against overwhelming odds, a like really helps share these forgotten histories with more people. This is the kind of character who refused to bow, even when bowing was the only rational choice. September 3, 1546, Petru Rareș dies. He is approximately 63 years old. The chronicles do not record the exact details of his death. There is no dramatic final battle, no assassination, no execution. He simply dies. Illness, perhaps, age, the accumulated toll of decades of war, exile, stress, and betrayal, but he dies as a voivode. Still on the throne, still Prince of Moldavia, still defiant to the end, he is buried in Probota Monastery, the church he built with his own hands. His son Ili II Rareș succeeds him without incident. His bloodline continues for generations. The Ottomans do not get the satisfaction of dragging him to Constantinople in chains. They do not get to execute him. He dies free. What do we make of this man? Was Petru Rareș a hero or a fool? A patriot or a reckless gambler who sacrificed his people's stability for personal glory? The historians are divided. Even his contemporaries were divided. He exhibited many of his father Stephen the Great's qualities: ambition, daring, bravery, piety, artistic taste. But he was also marked by inconstancy and a catastrophic lack of political instincts. He made enemies of everyone. He fought the Ottomans, the Habsburgs, the Poles, the Crimean Tatars, the Hungarians, the Transylvanians, and his own boyars, often simultaneously. He lost more battles than he won. His 2 periods of rule ended with Moldavia weaker, poorer, and more firmly under Ottoman control than before he took the throne. But he was the son of Stephen the Great, and he inherited his father's most dangerous quality, an absolute refusal to bow. In an age when every ruler in Eastern Europe bent the knee to Constantinople, when the Ottoman Empire was at its absolute zenith of power, when Suleiman the Magnificent ruled from the gates of Vienna to the deserts of Mesopotamia, one small prince in a tiny country said no. And kept saying no. He fought 7 armies: the Ottomans, the Habsburgs, the Poles, the Crimean Tatars, the Hungarians, the Transylvanians, his own rebellious boyars. He was driven into exile and returned, driven into exile again and returned again, betrayed by his own people and still reclaimed his throne. Crushed by the full weight of the Ottoman Empire and still rebuilt his power. He lost everything and started over. 4 times. There is something immortal in that defiance, something that transcends strategy and politics and rational calculation. When the most powerful empire on earth sent 240,000 men to crush him, Petru did not surrender. When his allies abandoned him, when his nobles betrayed him, when his capital burned and his fortresses fell, he did not give up. He became a fisherman again. He lived in the forest. He waited and he came back. Was it worth it? That is the question that haunts Petru's legacy. His wars cost Moldavia dearly. Thousands of soldiers dead, fortresses destroyed, territory lost, tribute payments increased, the Bujak region permanently annexed by the Ottomans, the northern Black Sea coast under Turkish control. Moldavia was smaller and weaker when Petru died than when he took the throne. His people suffered for his ambitions, but his people also remembered him. They built no statues during his lifetime, but after his death, his legend grew, the prince who fought the world. The bastard fisherman who became a king and refused to bow to any empire. The man who lost everything and kept fighting. Today, you can visit Prabodha Monastery in Botoșani County, northern Romania. The walls Petru built in the 1530s still stand, honey-colored stone weathered by centuries. The frescoes his wife Jelena commissioned still glow with color, though faded by time and weather. His tomb is there, inside the church, simple and unadorned. A stone slab marking the resting place of Petru Rareș, voivode of Moldavia, 1527-1538 and 1541-1546. Tourists walk past it without knowing the story. They admire the frescoes. They take photos of the monastery's architecture. They move on, but the locals remember. In the villages around Botoșani and Suceava, old men still tell stories of Petru Rareș, the prince who fought 7 armies. The man who was driven into exile and came back 4 times. The ruler who chose death in armor over life in chains. They call him a hero. They call him a fool. They call him both. And perhaps that is the only honest assessment. Petru Rareș was a man who refused to accept reality, who looked at the impossible and said, "Watch me anyway," who gambled everything, lost, and gambled again. In a world of pragmatists and survivors, he was a relic. A throwback to an earlier age when princes fought their own battles and refused to bend the knee. He was his father's son, and in the end that mattered more to him than victory, more than survival, more than rational self-interest. The Ottoman Empire eventually collapsed. It took centuries, but it fell. The Habsburg Empire fell. Poland was partitioned and erased from the map, then returned. The Crimean Khanate was absorbed by Russia and ceased to exist. All the great powers that crushed Moldavia are gone, but Romania exists. The Romanian people exist. And in the churches Petru built, in the monasteries he endowed, in the frescoes showing Christian armies fighting back against impossible odds, his spirit remains, defiant, unbroken, refusing to surrender. If you found Petru Rareș's story as intense as I did, please give this video a like. It really helps the algorithm share this hidden history with more people. And if you want to dive deeper into the dark, forgotten corners of the past, make sure you're subscribed. I have a question for you to answer in the comments. If you had been Petru Rareș in 1538, facing Sultan Suleiman's army of 240 men, would you have surrendered and accepted Ottoman vassalage to preserve stability for your people, or would you have fought to the death for independence even knowing it was almost certainly impossible? There is no easy answer. Both choices have honor. Both have cost. I read every comment, and I'd love to hear your take. Next time, we're diving into another forgotten story of impossible odds, the man who held a fortress against 200,000 invaders for 3 years with only 600 soldiers, and the shocking way it ended. Until then, remember that history is filled with people who were told they couldn't win and fought anyway. Some of them lost, some of them became legends. Petru Rareș was both. He died fighting 7 armies, he died free, and sometimes that is enough.